Good morning, everyone, again, and welcome to the New Priorities in the Customer Experience webinar, the 9th webinar in our COVID-19 Insight series. Each week, we welcome a special guest on for our series, and this week we are joined by Singh, Managing Director of JetBlue Technology Ventures, for an interview with David Morrow, VP of Global Marketing at ADARA. Before we begin our interview, Carolyn Corda, Chief Marketing Officer at ADARA, will share the latest data and insights from our Traveler Trends Tracker. Carolyn Corda is an industry leader in customer data and predictive intelligence. As the Chief Marketing Officer of ADARA, she's responsible for aligning the brand with the company's expanding mission and growth goals. Prior to ADARA, she was the Managing Director at Accenture, where she led the applied intelligence practice for the travel sector. Before that role, Carolyn was a senior executive at Epsilon with responsibility for developing and launching new data solutions. With that, I'll hand it over to Carolyn to begin our webinar for today.
Thank you, Niharika, and welcome all. We'll cover 3 topics today. First, a few notes on our COVID Resource Center. Then, as Niharika said, we'll dive into some of our latest trends. And we're delighted to have with us as a special guest, Singh. He and David will be exploring new priorities in the customer experience. First, a reminder, all the slides that you're seeing will be sent out after the webinar. Now, for those who aren't familiar with ADARA, you might wonder where the data I'm presenting today comes from. We have over 270 consumer brands that share their data with us, including some you likely recognize: United, Marriott, Singapore Airlines, and Travelport. As a result, we have a lot of data. Typically, we see over 14 billion searches a year and almost 1 billion air and hotel bookings. We're able to get fairly granular on transaction behavior, as most of our 1 billion profiles have on average 30 data points profile. We've made a lot of our trend data available on our website. It's organized by region: US, EMEA, and APAC. You'll see the URL here so you can access the data yourself. We do update it daily, so check back often for the latest. The insights you're seeing today have been developed by ADARA's brilliant analytics team. Of course, you're welcome to reach out to them if you're interested in custom reports and insights. We've made it easy with the purple request button. Also today, we'll have Milan Patel, who leads our analytics, on tap during my presentation. So if you have questions about the trends or need to clarify one of the charts, just put it in the chat box. Now let's turn to what we're seeing for summer travel in the US. While we obviously have data for other time periods and for business travel, many of my clients have been laser focused on summer travel as a gauge for the overall recovery. We'll be looking at 4 holiday periods: 4th of July, the first half and second half of August, and then finally Labor Day. Here are all 4 periods of the summer. I faded out the August periods so we can really focus on Independence Day and Labor Day. The pink columns are air bookings and the purple columns are hotel bookings. This shows the year-over-year change in volume, and it's all negative below the 0 axis. So in this case, the shorter column means less negative and is indicative of a stronger recovery. Compared to where the industry has been during the depths of COVID, 80–90% below 2019, these figures represent a modest improvement with what looks like more demand for hotels. Air bookings are down 70.3% for Independence Day, while hotel bookings are off 49.3%. The gap between air and hotel booking demand narrows by the time we get to Labor Day, with air down 67.7% and hotels down 54.4%. Now, you generally expect air and hotel to track more closely. And while some will speculate that the larger gap is attributable to the drive market, we'll see in a couple of minutes that there are other factors at play. Before I share the ranking of the most popular summer vacations, I'd like to offer a victory lap to ADARA's outstanding analytical team for spotting the demand for Las Vegas back in late April. At the time, consumer polls and the press reported that consumers were unlikely to be traveling, certainly not to high-density destinations, and certainly not via long air trips. There on the left, you see a sampling of the headlines, such as 2/3 of Americans won't travel for at least 3 months after COVID-19 subsides. By now, we've all seen the articles and the pictures documenting the crowds returning to Las Vegas over the past couple of weeks. But at the end of April, when we first reported that Las Vegas had jumped 10 spots compared to 2019 to become the 4th most popular destination for Memorial Day and was ranked #1 for Labor Day, that was a surprising revelation. I've presented our analysis to a few of our clients during May and gave them a chance to guess the top spot. No one guessed that Las Vegas was going to be the most popular travel destination. ADARA's data and analytics revealed what others caught on to a few weeks later, that places like Las Vegas and Miami were attracting the first wave of travelers. With that as our track record, here's the lineup for the rest of the summer. This chart breaks down the top 8 destinations based on air booking volume and hotel booking volume. The percentages reflect a year-over-year comparison for the period from May 1 to June 8, comparing 2019 to 2020. We've highlighted Miami, Las Vegas, and Orlando to underscore that the trend we saw 6 weeks ago is continuing, with high-density destinations attracting considerable demand. As we saw just a slide or two ago, there's considerable gap in the volume of air bookings, which are down 50 to 80% compared to last year, and the volume of hotel bookings, which for the top 3 destinations are only off 10% compared to last year. While an increase in the drive market undoubtedly plays a role, there's an event earlier in the year that has shifted air bookings. Back in early March, the airlines reduced their chain penalties and made it more attractive to book trips in March for travel later in the year. You'll see 2 big amber peaks on the chart on the left as booking volume doubled for trips more than 3 months out. Interestingly, 3 destinations got the lion's share of the bookings. You see in the chart on the right, proportions of bookings to all other U.S. destinations dropped about 20%, from 56 to 37. While Orlando, Las Vegas, and Miami, you see in the chart as they are in purple, green, and turquoise, all got an increase. Compared to typical booking patterns, Miami and Las Vegas got more than 50% bump, while Orlando got a 30% boost. The airline's policy changes and attractive fares hold bookings for summer to take place, to be booked and purchased in March, while hotel reservations for summer have primarily been booked in May and June. Based on this timing difference and other patterns that we're seeing, we're predicting that there's more flying, more people are flying to their summer destination than is currently being reported in consumer sentiment surveys and in the press. The drumbeat for the last 2 months has been all about the drive market. When journalists call me from CNN and from the Wall Street Journal, that's the story that they're writing. And while the drive market is important, if you're solely focused on the drive market, you may be missing out. Here's the evidence. We analyzed hotel bookings made from May 1 to June 8 for 4 Florida markets. If the traveler who made the reservation was from either Florida or close by feeder states, such as Georgia, South Carolina, and Alabama, then that booking was put into the drive market. If it was from another state, then we presumed that the mode of transportation was flight. By excluding origin states that were beyond a 10-hour and more drive, we separated the drive from the fly market. Obviously, this isn't a perfect method. Are there people in Chicago that are driving with their family to Orlando? Absolutely. At the same time, there are people that are more local that are flying. They're within a 10-hour bound that are certainly flying. Once we have categorized the drive and fly bookings for hotels, we then compare the proportions of bookings made during the same period last year for each of these 4 Florida destinations. The pink part of the circle is for those driving to the hotel. Purple is for those that are flying to the hotel. The inner ring is 2019 and the outer ring is 2020. You can see for Orlando, there's more pink in the outer ring than the inner ring, which indicates there's an increase in the drive market compared to last year. Conversely, if there's more purple in the outer ring than the inner ring, which is the case for all 3 of the other Florida destinations, that indicates an uptick in people that are flying to that destination. The shifts are relatively small comparing 2019 to 2019, about a 5% increase in the drive market for Orlando and a 4% increase in the fly market for Tampa hotels. For Miami and other Florida beaches, it's about a 2% difference. Compared to the amount of advertising going into drive vacations and the press coverage, it appears that people planning to fly for their vacation are being ignored. That's our summary for 4th of July. Looking across the rest of the summer, we're struck by the prevalence of high-density destinations such as Las Vegas, Orlando, Miami, along with Honolulu, which requires at least a 6-hour flight. We bolded them all here. We did also see demand for destinations close to national parks and close to open space where people will be able to just spread out more. Here you see Denver on the chart. And as we looked at demand for secondary markets, we also saw places in Idaho, South Dakota, and Montana all popping up as well. The volume of demand for the high density and long haul destinations runs counter to common wisdom that suggests this summer is all about nearcations. And it suggests that consumers are more comfortable traveling than our other indicators are telling us. Accurately gauging consumer willingness to travel is vitally important. Overestimate the demand and you waste your resources attempting to attract and fill demand that's not there. Underestimate and your competitors win. What do these early indicators on demand for certain destinations tell us about consumer confidence? You'll see in the arrows the accepted wisdom of how we expect consumers will re-engage and as we move out of quarantines and shelter-in-place restrictions. It'll start with dining, then drive vacations, next a short-haul flight for leisure, then a long-haul flight for a leisure break, and then finally an overseas trip. And we'll know we're back to full-blown new normal when people are attending business conferences. This chart has the first 4 arrows filled in to represent where ADARA's data is telling us what consumers are comfortable with. Our view is that the prevalence of air trips and even long-haul air suggests more consumer resilience than expected. Let's turn now to dining and entertainment, and then a couple slides on EMEA. The chart on the left depicts dining reservation volume by week indexed to the 1st of January. So for Tampa in turquoise at the top, Tampa's at 60% of the restaurant reservation dining compared to pre-COVID. Dallas is at about 35%. Las Vegas is yellow at 22%. Chicago announced restaurants could open for outdoor dining on May 29th, where you see the orange dot. And you can see it's quickly taken off, become more vertical, partly because you can only dine in a restaurant with a reservation. New York is still restricted for dining, so you see a flat line. For the bar chart on the right, Dallas and Tampa, and to a slightly lesser extent, Las Vegas, have the most reservations, the proportion of reservations in the short 1-week horizon, while Chicago is looking further out, as is New York. For entertainment, after a bump earlier in May as new programs became available, the volume of event bookings has remained relatively stable. You can see the top 10 events on the right, and those are primarily for music. Switching to EMEA, EMEA is continuing to see a steady improvement in air booking volume for both business and leisure travel. If we compare booking activity to the very lowest point of the COVID period in late April, which is a lower point of COVID, to the last 3 weeks, we can see there's been an 8-point increase in business and a 6-point increase for leisure there on the chart. The UK provides an interesting example of the impact of travel restrictions and quarantines. A mandatory 14-day quarantine was confirmed for the UK for May 22nd and implemented this week, meaning anybody traveling air or overseas was required to register where they were going to be and stay in that location for 14 days, and the police had the opportunity to come and check on them. They were subject to being checked on and a fine if they weren't where they said they were going to be. For business air bookings from volume to the UK from international origins within EMEA, it dropped 2 spots from rank 3 to rank 5. The impact was more obvious for leisure, where pre-quarantine bookings put the UK at rank 2 for bookings made between May 1st and May 15th. For bookings made between May 6th and June 7th, the UK dropped 6 slots from rank 2 to rank 8. So you can see the impact that government policy can have on booking activity.